It is 4:02. I know that we saw kind of a slower trickle, so we were letting people a little bit in and hearing glorious stories of tamale season, and sort of some good sharing of what that entails. I definitely want to welcome, I know we have just a small group right now, a lot of district staff, because there's a lot, this is a kind of a big thing we've done, right? We've sent out the draft RFP, or request for proposals. Oh, wait, did we lose Estela? Did I miss? She was on, right? Hopefully we get her back on.
Jessica, I'm not sure. I think I want to request two things. One is that we go around and do introductions, because we have Haley who is joining us, and I want her to know all of you, and vice versa. Yes. And then was there any, I saw the two RFPs that were linked to the Zoom link for today. I didn't see an agenda though, so I don't know if I missed it.
No, and we didn't send an agenda. The whole agenda, and I apologize for not being put, the agenda was just to review the RFP. That was the only, and then of course talk about next steps and action items. So I do apologize.
Yeah, no worries. I think that's a good plan. Just really quickly also, and just put her in your radar. And I hope she joins again. But right before this meeting, Estela called me and she was asking about the stipends. She said that since October, she has not received her stipend. And I'm like, well, that's not okay. We should find out what is happening, right? So
yes, and Stephanie, more update. Steph, I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, so we spoke to Harder. It took a minute for them to kind of line up. They were like calling all the residents, double checking addresses and stuff on their side. So we got the update. They're sending October and November, and they sent them on Friday. So I think slowly we should see them hopefully soon, getting to everyone together October and November.
And they were trying, and I apologize if it didn't happen, to try to call and like verbally let folks know that. But I know that with, especially if it's coming from an unknown number, people understandably might not get that. But yes, thank you, Naimeen, for raising that. We'll make that same announcement at the next Fresno meeting. But especially if by then, if someone hasn't gotten it, then that means something, is awry. But I do agree with Naimeen's initial comment of just going around the room. I do hope that Estela can join us back, but until then, hopefully everyone else is in the proper interpreting channels if they need to be. But we can go ahead and go around the room and introduce ourselves. And maybe I'll just have the district staff go quickly first, so we don't have to wait to do the popcorn, and sometimes that gets confusing. I'm Jessica Olson. I'm the Director of Community Strategies and Resources, so over kind of AB 617 at the district, and then we'll just go to all the district staff, starting with Stephanie.
Hi everyone, my name is Stephanie Ng, and I'm an air quality specialist in the Community Strategies and Resources Department, and I'll pass it over to Anna.
My name is Anna Stone, and I'm part of the OC department, or the Outreach and Communications department, for the Valley Air District. Aaron.
My name is Aaron Tarango, a program manager in our grant department who oversees a lot of our off-road equipment programs.
And then David.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Lopez. I'm a supervising air quality specialist, and I'll be helping administer the vegetative and urban greening programs.
Awesome. And then we'll go to Naimeen, please.
Hi, everyone. Naimeen Martinez with the Central California Environmental Justice Network, and I have another of my colleagues joining me, actually two colleagues. So Haley, I'll put you at the end if you don't mind. Well, never mind. Jasmine, introduce yourself, and then we will go with Haley.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jasmine Buenrostro with Central California Environmental Justice Network. I am the youth coordinator. And then I'm going to introduce Haley. Yeah, so as you remember, we had some climate action or climate corp fellows last year. It was Yesenia and Aurelio, and then Aurelio left, and we had Yesenia until the summer. And now we're proud and really happy to introduce you to Haley, who is going to be our current climate corp and will be totally assigned to working with this subcommittee from now until September. So it's going to be a good chunk of time that she will be able to help us. So Haley, you want to say a few words about yourself?
Hi, hello. I'm happy to be here. And it was interesting hearing about the tamales as well before the meeting started. Enjoyed that. and I'm here to work on the Urban Greening Vegetative Barriers Project with the Central California Environmental Justice Network, and look forward to working with everybody here.
We look forward to working with you, and that's exciting. So through September, that's a lot of time, and hopefully between now and September, I have a feeling we'll have a lot hopefully happening with this. We've met a lot. I am sure Naimeen has updated you recently. So this is sort of a really big action today to kind of review this first initial draft of the RFP. I'll go to Lisa.
Hi, Lisa Flores, Queen of the Tamales. What else do you want?
I don't know. Lisa, do you work, live in the, I guess your affiliation on the CSC, and I mean, we all know who you are, but.
Yeah, everybody knows who I am. I'm a retired Caltrans, 20 years as an associate environmental and transportation planner. Specialties include community outreach and grant administration. And we're going to have a real interesting discussion today.
Awesome. All right. And then we'll go to Ivanka, and then I see a phone number, and then we'll end with Jennifer from CARB.
Hi, everyone. This is Ivanka Saunders, CSC member and policy advocate with Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I see a phone number ending in 7143. Can you unmute yourself and just let us know who you are? I'm going to totally mess it up, but star six is unmute yourself if you're having trouble. So you'll have to unmute your phone and then also press star 6, and it should allow you. There we go.
Hi, everyone. This is Nasreen Johnson with Caglia Environmental. We operate a business in the area and are interested in the vegetative barriers. And I also am an alternate on the CSC.
You're Janet's alternate, then, I imagine.
Yes.
Awesome. Good to know. And then Estela, we are introducing ourselves. Hopefully she's in the right interpretation channel. We can help her otherwise.
Sí, buenas tardes a todos.
Hi, Estela.
Estela.
Hola, ¿me escuchan?
Sí. Estamos introduciéndonos a las personas aquí en este subcomité. Si nos puede decir un poquito de usted, por favor.
Sí, me llamo Estela Ortega y vivo aquí en Fresno y soy del subcomité de la B617. Buenas tardes a todos.
My name is Estela. I live in Fresno, and I'm part of this AB617 committee here in Fresno.
Great, thank you. And then Jennifer, please, I think is our last one.
Yep. Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Magana. I'm with CARB, Office of Community Air Protection, and I've been working alongside Brian to help him out with his duties with South Central Fresno.
Brian Moore, just for those that maybe, I know we have a lot of Brians we probably throw at you. It seems like
that's right. Brian Moore.
Awesome. Well, I will just kick it off to thank all of you for being here. As you hopefully saw, we sent out the draft. So it's our first draft of the RFP based on our discussions and based on the project plan we had approved by CARB, based on the approval from our governing board. So this draft was sent to you all. We did mail a hard copy to those who requested the hard copy, as well as our Spanish speakers. So hopefully people had a chance to review it. Our plan today is to go over it, so we can start by kind of scrolling through some of the highlights. I do see a hand, so we can definitely just start by taking questions. And then I would ask, if you're referencing a specific section, just let us know what page and we can pull it up and talk about it. And that way the folks that are following along with their printed copies can also talk about it. So I can start with Naimeen, and then I'll kick it to Erin if there are no initial questions to kind of go over high level.
So I think that the first question that I have, and I have like 100, so, but more than questions, comments, but this is the most important question, Erin. So the deadline for this proposal is December 15th. And if I'm not mistaken, this is already up in your website. So that's the first question. Is that correct?
No, that's incorrect. Those are highlighted. Those are placeholders when we get this solidified. That's why they're left highlighted.
I almost had a heart attack when I read this, because the timelines here are completely unrealistic. And even the proposed times, like I think you guys, we all need to be talking to the people who are experts planting trees, but you cannot expect any project that would apply to plant trees in the summer or late spring. So that's another big change you have to do. But I other than the specific questions, that was the main one. I do have like 100 comments, as I said, Jessica. So you want me to wait until Aaron goes over the RFP and then we open it up for comments, or how do you want to structure it?
I think we just open for comments, I think.
Yeah, we can just start with comments if that works for everyone else. And like I said, I mean, if you can reference what you're talking about so we can track and follow along, that would be helpful. And yeah. And I just to clarify for everyone, yes, the dates that Naimeen is referring to on page 4 are highlighted. Those were just draft placeholders for when we finalize all of this. That will be updated. And of course, even the timeline in between those dates, say we pushed it back several months from when we actually released the RFP. If for some reason we as a committee feel like there needs to be more time for review or selection, that can be part of the comments as well. So I appreciate that. And then I'll go to Naimeen.
Well, a lot of comments. My first instinct is that why are we trying to spend the whole money in just 1 year RFP? I think that it would make more sense to try to split it into cycles and learn from the implementation of the first cycle. So regardless if the deadline is not December 15th, I think, I don't see why that is the case. And, and if you want to explain later, Aaron, what went to that decision. I also am not open, or I think it could be tricky to have no maximum or minimum grant amounts. I also think that the fact that you add the word individual, both in the urban greening and vegetative barrier RFP, was totally cosmetic, because then as you go over the criteria and all that, it's completely unrealistic to expect that any individual will be able to fulfill this, to have the money to front it, to have the experience and everything else that you have added there. And it's extremely confusing that in the particular RFP for the urban greening, on page 8, you have a section that says individual. Well, it contradicts what you have on page 4, because applicant eligibility includes individual. But then on page 8, you have a section that says individuals. And what I understood from that section is that you are saying that it's an or that's the way I'm interpreting. I read this as, an organization is going to apply and then make sure that individuals can apply through that organization. If that's the case, then you need to strike the word individual from the earlier page. And then if that's the case, I think that you need to have a lot more explanation of what are the criteria or what are the elements that you're going to require this organization to make that determination of the individual. I also think it was not appropriate to include the list of all the the maps that we included in the mapping tool, because if I read this, it seems like you got to plant the trees only here. I think that it should be open to check some of the suggested locations and leave it as an appendix, but it's not like you have to plant it here, because one thing is what a resident can recommend, the other thing is the feasibility. And we have examples of, for instance, some of the places where trees that were dead were cut, and some of the residents, members of the CSC, had said, I want trees there. But when we checked with Mona from Fresno, there was concrete, there was a sidewalk, so it was not feasible. And I imagine the same is going to apply to several of the locations that are listed in that map. So because of that, I'm not okay with listing all that in either of the two RFPs. The other thing is that I think that is so, I don't even know how to find a word that is not going to be disrespectful or insulting, but the way that you determine that your APCO or your board have the authority of throwing out of the window the ranking that is going to be made based on the criteria that are outlined in the RFP, and that they could decide to give the money to other projects regardless of the scoring. That makes us just like, well, then why you have the scoring? Why we are doing all this process? I mean, that paragraph on page 11 where it says the executive officer of governing board may award a contract to an applicant other than the applicant receiving the highest ranking in the event that the governing board determines that another applicant from among those technical qualified will provide the best value considering cost and technical factors. I have a lot of problems with that paragraph. It's just, you know, inappropriate to say the minimum. And I'm almost done. I'm sorry, I'm taking a lot of space, but I was having a lot of problem with this document. The scores, I believe that if we, you know, before I go to the scores, I think that in addition, I don't see anywhere here, and that was one of the first recommendations that we made in the initial meetings of this subcommittee, that some of the criteria will be the tree, you know, the index of tree canopy, so that we are making sure that we're prioritizing the places where the tree canopy is lower and that the pollution is higher. And I don't see anything in this language of the criteria. So that should be definitely added. Also, I don't like the fact that you are characterizing or using the word, where is it? That the CSC is going to assist. I believe that was the word that was used. It's going to assist the staff to review the applications and all that. I believe that we were going to be at the same level. The US staff might be doing the initial read just to make sure that they've meet all the criteria, but that when the ranking is happening, it's going to be, I'm not assuming all the CSC is going to do it all together, but maybe this subcommittee to really work with you to go over that ranking system. But I have issues with that selection of word of assisting. I think it's not a proper word if we are thinking that we are an equal partner in this ranking and selection process. And not to take away, you know, all the time for myself, I'll stop there. I'm sure there's many other comments, but I know my colleagues might have a lot of observations as well.
I don't know. I know I have a couple of, I don't know if it would be best, Erin, if you had some responses. I definitely don't want, we might not get to everyone's all of the comments, especially I know that there's lots of really great, robust, thank you, Kevin. I was thinking the same thing, actually. Kevin just commented, you know, a great suggestion for some of the amended changes. I think I'll just generally respond to Naimeen. I think a lot of what you just said are good clarification or amended wording that makes it a lot clearer. One of your great examples was your comments about individuals. From my understanding, and Erin and David, correct me if I'm wrong, Naimeen exactly characterized it exactly what is intended, which is that the entity, the entity that applies to be awarded the urban greening RF, you know, they rank the highest in the request for proposals, they will be the implementing agency and they will have to allow individuals to apply to get trees. And so that's what that individuals piece means. And so her point, which I do agree with, makes it to where it seems like the individuals are applying could apply to the RFP and needs to just be clarified. So I think that's maybe just the clarification that could be there. And I mean, we A, are recording this and B, are taking down notes. So I do think hopefully in our next iteration, we can a lot of your comments are just clarification or just rewording that makes it, you know, either, you know, clarifies our position or the, like you said, the equal partnership and working together. So I appreciate that. I will go to, Erin, unless you wanted to add anything else, I'll go to Lisa.
No, I think you said it right. I think, you know, especially the individual, the goal was, yes, they will, but the contractor will make sure they get the correct tree where they're located at, you know, the correct one there, I believe. And I think on the ranking, I think you're right. I think we left that part out. And that's what the part of this is for, is to make sure we get everything in there that's correct.
Right, exactly.
You know, so we tried at all the points we could hit, plus meeting the requirements that ARB has on us as well to report back to them the correct information.
Right.
So yeah, I think we're close. I mean, some of the comments you had, I think we're very close, just to modify some things and correct a couple things to answer those questions. But I think
actually, and Lisa, if you'll indulge me
close.
once, I have one clarifying question for Naimeen, and maybe this is just for the group too. And your community requested locations for urban greening, what you're saying is maybe we can still leave that in there as a suggestion, but then leave it open to people, because I do want to acknowledge that there has been work done.
Yeah, and as a reference, right? So that there is this, that we're not starting from scratch, and maybe, and I know that, and that's a question. I believe that at one point you said that the ranking criteria, like the scoring and all that, we're going to work it together, you know, after this RFP is completed. Because I think that, for example, you know, one thing could be that if they are hitting one of the recommended spots in the, or identified spots in the in that exercise, you know, it might give them one extra point or something like that. And I just forgot something very important to add into the component that describes how an organization will then, you know, be applying so that then they give trees to individuals. I think that it's so important that that applicant is culturally relevant, that they have the language capacity, that they have the knowledge and experience of engaging and outreaching to the communities where these trees are going to be planted. Because I don't want to see, you know, like an organization applying from God knows where that have no idea where you know, area is. Or for that matter, you know, I have already had this discussion with Mona. She's a very lovely person. But for example, Tree Fresno, as much experience as they have, they don't have any language capacity, or they don't have anyone that, you know, they would have to make sure that they put up a plan that describes how they're going to provide these good services, because I don't want only English speakers being able to get the money to plant the trees. So I want to make sure that's also added.
Then Jessica, you said there's notes being taken on this.
Yeah, I'm taking some quick notes, and then, like I said, obviously we'll record this, so we'll double check Aaron and clarify. But yes, that's noted as well.
Yeah, so we can go back, because we're gonna miss some of these. I mean, it's hard to keep all these things right.
Lots of great.
Yeah, the other thing I want to respond to, as far as the locations, the locations were pulled out directly from the ask of the members, and basically, the very last sentence was, you know, the applicant must evaluate all the locations community identified to see if it's a viable option. So like, it's simply, they must look to see, hey, is this viable to put these here? Some you can't, like I said, there's concrete, there's that you can't do that. So not the fact that's the end all be all, no, these have been identified. We want to make sure we address those, because a lot of work has been done, as Jessica mentioned. I want to make sure that that was part of it, that no, look at these locations, see if it's even possible to do it, because sometimes easements and this, and you know, so
maybe we just clarify with language that says, you know, you can prioritize community suggested locations, but as you know, throughout the boundary, identify areas, you know, using the tool Naimeen mentioned about tree, you know, canopy index, kind of clarifying a little bit that these aren't the only options, I think is all we'll need to do. Lisa, thank you for being patient.
Oh, I'm beyond patient. I'm calm now, because I was angrier earlier today. First off, Mr. Lopez, I called you a couple of hours ago, I think about 1, and I never got a return phone call, and I kind of want to know why. Second, because one of the questions I wanted to ask was, who actually wrote these proposals? Because I'm not at all happy with these proposals. Now, you know, I've had plenty of experience giving input when I worked for the state of how to write these sorts of applications. And this so far this is so poorly written that I literally stopped reading the document, the greening part of it, at page, I think I got as far as page 8, because there's problems with every single paragraph. It is not clear, it is not concise, it's very convoluted. I just imagine I'm a homeowner and I want a tree. When I start reading this, I wouldn't even get past like a page and a half of this before I would be so frustrated and walked away. And that is not what we're asking of this process. The other thing I'm also would like to ask Mr. Lopez is, what is the community outreach plan to let the community know that these trees are available? And you know, there's a lot of issues for me right now. I would scrap these 2 documents and try to find some time, space, continuum machine to give me back my life I spent on it, because that's how poorly written they are. They are
Lisa,
so
okay,
bad.
so
you
a couple,
guys.
I have to stop you there. We're talking about a couple things. I will clarify, and then I will ask that we be respectful of, this is not a time and a place to put our opinions on people's ability to write documents. This is a very much in the same vein of all these types of RFPs that the district puts out.
And it's also disrespectful to continues to get work that isn't reaching a level and spending my time. That's disrespectful as well, because, you know, I have suggested stuff in the past and we've gone round and round about this, and we'll continue to go round and round about this, but there are some significant flaws in this.
So, okay, so I'll start with addressing kind of one of your main points of this. And I think it's to Naeem's actually earlier point. This, and I just want to be clear, RFP is not intended and will not be the first sort of public facing homeowner document that people will apply to. This is for an entity to administer the program. And I agree with you completely. And it's to Naeem's earlier, I think one of her comments about how we will work with that entity to make sure that, and maybe it's a piece that needs to be added in here to be clear, that that entity works with us to do that outreach, to have the application itself for the homeowners be very simple, very easy, very clear, available in English and Spanish. That's the work we would do with the entity that would be awarded the RFP. This RFP is for one entity that would administer the program. So it's an administrative sort of concept.
And how was I supposed to know that in reading this document? I
agree. So I'm saying
the other issue also
clarify
too
there,
is,
and I think
where is your schedule for doing public workshops with nonprofits and community members? It doesn't exist and should have been put into this. If you're going to ask me to review something, try to give me a complete document to the best of your ability.
So Lisa, I think too, that much like, remember when we recently just did the truck reroute RFP, and it's when they apply, we have been working, for example, with the request for the actual proposal from the entity that applied to the truck reroute study. And they're the ones who are working with us to figure out, or working with the city to figure out that outreach schedule and that plan. That's the same thing we would ask of whoever applied to this. And I agree, we would want to make sure that that was included. So maybe it's
so my question to you is, what would our standards of public outreach that we would expect?
Right.
We should
so
already
I agree.
know that.
I agree. We need a short piece of that. And that's feedback. We certainly, maybe that's what we can encourage today, is some feedback initially on what we want that section to look like. But I think it would be a brief, like, you as an entity need to have an outreach plan. Please, when you apply, how are you planning to reach out to this particular community? What are your cultural and language competencies? That can be one of those criteria pieces that we can ask them to submit.
That's interview questions. I want to see what we're expecting in black and white in a time frame. What are your time frames? Because I saw these time frames and I'm like, okay, we blew those. Why are we seeing those? Give us some suggestions of when you think that this document will be, you know, shored up and done. Because, you know, my big problem is, and, you know, I know you guys don't like to hear professionalism and competency and stuff, but, you know, as a member of the public, as a volunteer here, you know, I would hope that what you present to us is the best and the brightest that you have. And this, for me to sit here and literally read through this document, and I have problems with every single paragraph, and I used to do this for a living, that should tell you something. So I just had to stop because I was just getting more angrier, because I really felt like I was wasting my time.
Well, I apologize for anyone who feels like they wasted their time. I do appreciate all of the really constructive feedback we've received so far. So hopefully those of you who did make it through the document felt like you could give us the feedback you've given us, even though I know Naeem had lots of feedback for us and we acknowledge that there was a lot to be edited. Hopefully the starting point itself gave everyone else something to think about. One of the notes that I will take from Lisa and we will note is a section that's about making sure that this person has an outreach plan. If you guys have any concrete language for what you think that could include.
But the outreach plan, please, Jessica, I think let's be clear. What I am understanding, and I agree with Lisa, is that the outreach plan is not only limited to the organization that will then be providing the trees, it's even for these. So for example, are you going to host informational meetings for people that are, going to potentially apply to these? You're going to have a question, frequently asked questions? Are we going to do presentations? How are we going to make sure that, for instance, schools or any other entity that could be potentially eligible for this fund will know about this? So that is the other outreach plan that needs to be maybe not included, or maybe yes in the RFP, but also in the planning process, so that when that deadline is released, you already have embedded all that into, okay, if we are going to say the deadline is going to be March 15th, that means that we're going to host meetings and so on and so forth this day. And so I think that's the outreach plan we also wanted to see.
I think that makes sense. And I'm wondering if our action item for our next meeting, obviously throughout today's meeting, we'll get feedback on RFPs so we can make amendments and get it out to you as quickly as possible. I'm wondering if the next meeting we agendize, and we will send out an agenda so people can come prepared for that particular discussion of, okay, subcommittee, how can maybe we'll come up with a draft outreach plan, and then you as a subcommittee can help us refine that. So like you said, Naimeen, whether it's included in the RFP or it's in addition, hey, this RFP in conjunction with this outreach plan is what we move forward based on your recommendations.
And I would encourage your staff to reach out to me and Vanessa regarding that, for the sole purpose of, her and I spent maybe 6 hours writing up an outreach plan for the TCC, and the powers that be rejected it. But what ended up happening, they used 75% of the outreach plan that we wrote. So, we're actually pretty well versed in doing something like that. And the other part is also in this document, when it said, well, staff will be available. When I make a phone call and nobody returns a phone call, that tells me, if I was a member of the public and I was asking for help and I couldn't get a simple phone call back to say, hey, what's going on? How can I help you? That doesn't give me much. I'm not feeling the love.
And I know David just unmuted, David, you can answer too, but I was just about to say, you said you called this afternoon. Hopefully someone at the district talked with you and offered to help. But in terms of David getting back to you, I'm imagining he was planning to get back to you in preparation for this meeting. He obviously, I'm sure, had other things going on.
Yeah.
And no, so, hi, Lisa. I just want to jump in. And by the way, you can address me as David. You don't have to call me Mr. Lopez. That's perfectly fine. I apologize. Normally I'm in the office today, but today I wasn't. I'm working from home, and I hadn't get a chance to call back and get all my messages and to reply. So I do apologize for that. But I do want to also suggest, if you ever need me, and if I'm not getting back to you as quickly as you like, feel free to email me too. For some reason, my emails tend to pop up really quick, and I'll be happy to respond in a more timely manner. So,
David, I'm using it as an example. If I was a member of the public, of what sort of rapid response would the community get? Because a lot of times when people are applying for something, if somebody doesn't get back to them within a couple of hours, they kind of give up.
I understand the need for promptness, and I appreciate the feedback.
And that's what I mean, because I did actually wanted to have a discussion with you about the document.
No, I would.
Offline,
yeah, I look forward to having more discussions with you about this, and we can schedule a time. And we can work as a team with some other staff members, and hear your feedback. And this is obviously, as has been mentioned here, this is a draft document, and we are taking this feedback and we're going to improve on it.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Lisa.
I'll talk to him in January, because you guys aren't messing up another Christmas.
Other comments from any of the CSC members or anyone else on the call? So kind of wrap a little bit, and maybe I'll just kind of speak, but in case it prompts any thought. Oh, Estela, I will go to you. Won't even talk.
Sí, pues sí, yo también miro que es muy pronto para leer tanta información, es muy rápido todo. Y para nosotros, la comunidad, entender muchas palabras, sí necesitamos tiempo para leer en detalle todo eso también. Es muy rápido, muy pronto, muy a la carrera y pues no, así no podemos entender todo lo que dicen los papeles porque es mucho.
Yeah.
Y también quería decir también de que los estipendios del mes de octubre y de noviembre bueno, a mí no me han llegado, no sé qué pasó. No sé si todavía los van a seguir dando o no, pero sí quisiera saber si sí los van a seguir dando, así para ya saber y no estar esperando que me va a llegar un estipendio.
Yeah. First comment was, I think this is a lot of text to review in a very short amount of time. It's a lot to take in and very quick. It just seems very quick and rapid. I'd like to have more time. And another thing that I want to address is that the stipends for October and November haven't arrived, and she's wondering if are they going to arrive anytime soon, or what's going on with that.
Yes, and thank you, Estela. I think I'll speak to the first and second point, and Stephanie, let me know if I missed anything on the second point. To your first point, I think it's clear we need more time for folks to provide any additional comments, as well as what we've heard so far today. We will go ahead and take in and amend and make changes to this draft RFP. So at our next meeting, we can review those changes and discuss, like I said, also any sort of feedback on an outreach piece. We will put something draft together and discuss that as well. And so thank you for your patience, and I appreciate all the time that people spent reviewing it. Is a long document. And then to your second piece, Naimeen brought up your concern earlier. I think you had jumped off the call for a moment. And Stephanie had let us know Harder & Company in the transition had been reaching out to everyone to finalize, making sure that they had everyone's correct contact information when they transitioned from ILG for stipend payments. I believe they've sent everything or the final checks for both October and November combined on Friday. So if you don't receive it in the next couple of days, please call us back. We will work with Harder & Company to make sure that nothing was amiss. And we will make that same announcement during the Fresno meeting, because certainly by then, if people didn't receive it by the meeting, then something is up. But I would expect probably in the next couple of days, you should receive something. And then it should be normally back on track and much quicker from here. It was just that transition. So, oh. Go ahead, Estela. Sorry, I saw you unmute.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other, kind of in commenting back to Estela, I sort of summarized next steps sort of all in one fell swoop, but any other thoughts or comments, if you did get a chance to take a look at the RFP specifically about that, or about next steps in process?
So we're doing RFPs. Are we going to be seeing applications for individuals that will be bundled? And when should we expect that?
No. So I think I just need to clarify again, and this was sort of my comment in response to Naimeen's earlier comment as well, about clarifying a little bit more in the document itself also, is that applicants, individuals will, once we award the RFP that's administering the program, the applicants will apply to the person administering, or the group or the entity or the organization administering the program. And so we will evaluate, the RFP is to evaluate the people that are administering the program, and they cannot administer the program. They can't even get awarded this RFP unless they, in their proposal, say that they're going to work to plant trees for individuals and all of whatever else we want to additionally specify through all of this feedback we're getting. So,
then we also need to see what their application for the community will look like to make sure that it's fair, equitable, and that individual homeowners or renters can actually apply.
So maybe as a part of that outreach, it's like outreach and what your application specifically looks like.
An example of the application, or at least a list of criteria that they will use to make sure that, I think that what has to be like set in stone is that we want, and when I say we, it's not only us, but the spirit of allocating all this money and the CERP starting in the first place is that the South Central Fresno area sees an increase of trees in the areas that are more needed. So that has to be like bolded, highlighted, underlined. So no matter who gets the money, it is clear that we're not gonna all of a sudden be surprised that trees are being planted somewhere else because, well, no one from South Fresno asked for the trees, and you know, someone across the street from the woodwork part applied, so we gave them the trees. We don't want to be blindsided by something like that. We want to make sure, as I said before, that they also use the same criteria, that there's going to be extra points given to the areas that have lowest tree canopy and highest air pollution. And also we want to see an outreach plan for them. How are they going to verify that they're going to reach out to the residents and the organizations and all that who are potentially going to be eligible to apply for this? Because what we see all the time is that there's no proper outreach, and then all of a sudden, you know, the money, we're ending the deadline and no one applied that should have applied. And we also need to make sure that it's so easy, because Lisa has mentioned it so many times, that a resident is not going to go and do a 100-page application. Right. What if the resident doesn't speak English? They have to be able to submit their application in other languages. It has to be a very quick, simple Google Doc or even paper form. You know what I mean? So I think that we want to make sure that we see all that in all the organizations that are going to apply for these re-granting, if you will, for individuals.
That makes sense. Jasmine had her hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to mention that when I was reading the draft, I noticed that there are certain areas where it's saying like Roding Park, which that park itself, it already has enough trees, you know, it's right next to the zoo. So I feel like where our focus should be like on places that really do need the trees, like Malaga, and like Naomi was mentioning, a lot of people are not going to want to do that whole application. So if there's a way we can minimize that for our residents, because most of our Southside residents do not speak the language. And we need to make sure that our focus is to put it right next to industrial works, because there's some residents who are living right close to the industrial, and that's a lot of air pollution that is getting involved. And that's just my comment that I wanted to say.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I also have another comment. I'm very concerned, and I just want to put it out there, that if the process is not appropriately done, that a majority of this money will go to the biggest, baddest tree organization in town, and trees will end up being planted in areas which are, let's just put it out there, Dyer's friends and businesses and beautify Fresno versus actually where they need to be put. And that's what my greatest concern is, that a political element will come in and it will totally skew where the trees will actually go. That is my greatest concern in this. And what I would like to also see is, I would also like to see that when whoever gets the grant, the proposal, gets the applications from the individual, that they do a ranking and they have to submit it to us so we can see, to make sure that it's on the up and up. And also to, in your document, you need to have a schematic of the breakdown of percentages of the grant that is to be expended. If you're going to do overhead and management, office equipment, that needs to be broken down, because I was trying to figure that out, you know, until I got fed up with how it's written, and I did not like the percentages. 25% is a lot.
Yeah,
it's way too much.
I also agree. I think that you know, this has to be about equity. So if all are you going to care is the cost, you know, and that's why you're assigning 0 to 40 to the cost effectiveness, I think we have a problem. And I do have some concrete recommendations like for instance, changing that 0 to 40 to a 0 to 30, changing the exposure benefits, increasing it. Because why are we doing this? To reduce exposure. So that should have more weight, at least 30. Co-benefits, 25, not 20. Those are my recommendations. But then I, kind of like tagging along to Lisa's comment is, I have an issue. You're saying that cities, counties, special districts, nonprofits, public agencies can apply. And you're saying that there is no limit for the maximum amount or minimum amount. That means that the city of Fresno can apply for the $1 million and you're going to give it to them? I don't think so. So you got to put a maximum amount and a minimum amount, because I'm not going to sign off on these being another way for the city to write off an obligation that they have not fulfilled of having trees planted in these areas of the city.
And a good example of that, in Naomi, is look what they're doing with the stimulus money. They're going to go off and buy, cop cars versus doing something actual for the residents. So, there's ways that this can be manipulated that I'm very, very wary of.
Thank you both, Naimeen and Lisa. Ivanka.
Hi, everyone. I really am just staying quiet because so much of what Naimeen and Lisa are just taking it away with everything that I agree on. But in my own words, I will just say that the entities that are chosen for this RFP, and the biggest concern is the public agencies, not even necessarily as much as the nonprofits, that if you're giving them a barrier, a boundary, the 617 boundary, like that needs to be held, they need to be held accountable to. You are not planting 1 cent, 1 tree, anything outside of this boundary. So if it's very clear, but then in the reporting back, there has to be a report back to the Air District once the progress reports are actually showing how did you actually stick to the criteria, as the word Naimeen is using a lot, because it's very important that that criteria is stuck to. And unfortunately, it's so unfortunate that we can say we don't want to see this money end up in North Fresno, but we have a city that knows how to finagle the funds and move things around in a very hidden process. We've seen it time and time again. So this is not an over exaggeration. When we work in land use and we work in a lot of other spaces with public agencies, to know that those loopholes do exist. And we don't want these to be funds that can end up in those interesting loopholes. And I'll just stop there because I really am in agreement with everything that Naimeen and Lisa are stating. Thank you.
Thanks, Ivanka. And I think it's definitely in here, but I think it can be clear, and even in the reporting requirements, make sure it is super clear. We 100% not only agree, but like we are responsible for this CERT money being spent only in that boundary. And so it is going to be critical that that's a piece of that, that's it,
but that not one entity is going to swipe out all the money. That's not okay either. Even if the city gets the, all the plants, all the trees in the area, I have a problem. One entity. I know that that's going to make your life fair and easy because you just got one check, but I don't care. This is not about giving all the money to the entity that has the capacity to begin with, and that puts their name in front of the line.
For example, let me give you an example of what I can see coming down the pipe. There's Measure P money that they're going to put trees and parks and stuff. There's also, public works where they're going to put some trees and vegetation. What is to say that the city won't come in and say, we want to put these trees, and instead of them actually funding their public work elements that would take care of it, they decide to use this pot of money. And is that fair to the tenant of 617? I would think it's not, but
right. No, I think there's a lot of agreement and sentiment to what you're saying, Lisa. I do think that was sort of our intention with specifying the locations, because we felt like, oh, if the community specifies the locations, that can at least help direct it away maybe from that. But I do think your point is more about the entity and less about the location. So we're noting that.
And part of the thing also too is that your staff is going to have to be very diligent, which I don't believe they will be, is to actually start tracking what is Public Works, what is the budget of Fresno, and actually attending some of these city council meetings to start to educate them on what the city is actually doing with the big buckets of money that they have access to right now.
Maybe that's a question to add. If it's the city or any entity that has access to Measure P money, they need to ensure that they're not double dipping, that they're using, you know, they're telling Measure P that they're using our money and vice versa. And I know Haley has been unmuted for quite a while. Haley, we all have to jump and also raise our hand, or you're never going to get the floor.
Yes, I had no idea you were, sorry, I thought you were, I did not know you were. Haley, I can go to you. And then Ivanka, I don't know if you just put your hand down. I didn't know if it was still up. Okay, I'll go to Haley, I agree.
Okay, I have several items, but also I want to comment on what you said about the Measure P conflict. One way to take away conflicts is to make those potentially in conflicts ineligible just right off the bat. You could put that right in the language of the RFP, and you should say the RFP should be as specific as possible as to who is eligible and who is not eligible and why. And definitely you should have conflicts of interest as a paragraph in that is just common sense. And that would take care of a lot of alleged fees. You can actually decide, this group can decide that no public entity is eligible for this money, none. And that actually the public entities are responsible vis-a-vis their own general funds and budgeting to assisting and supporting the efforts of the nonprofits who are eligible. The other thing is nonprofits itself. There are 502Cs that are wolves in sheep's clothing. So it is a matter of due diligence to investigate the officers, the standing of even nonprofits. Okay, so let me go on to what I had to say. I just wanted to add that as a comment. And I do believe, since there's so much fears and concerns, and I live in Sacramento, I've never lived in Fresno, so I don't know much about Fresno. But I think these fears have to be alleged, and one way to do it is to just, City of Fresno, you're simply not eligible. Okay, I have item 1, page 4, contract period. This is my first item, page 4 under contract period. The significant level might not be attained or attainable. You have here 10 years. That seems like too long, possibly 5 or 6 is a better, given a biologist by training, given how trees and vegetation grows, that is actually, probably better for a commitment. And then an implementation period for a project should be shortened to 2 years. Once you're awarded the money, you have, 2 years to get trees and vegetation, trees, barriers in the ground. And page 4 on cost effectiveness as a scoring criterion. This is Naima said a lot about this. But that favors large entities. If you're going to score on cost effectiveness, that's like a real catch-all phrase. It's, what is cost effective? I think it's cost effective for community, people in the community to be involved in this. That's the most cost effective thing you can do. So that scoring should be 10 points, no more than that. And that's page 4 as well. Page 4, applicant eligibility, item 1, specifically precludes private companies, which is very good. However, and maybe this is a radical idea, but you might add to the item in eligibility is community. This is direct, an item number 5 to eligibility would be community-based, and nonprofits may use the grant awarded to them as leverage to raise matching funds for greening projects. So in other words, if I'm the environmental community nonprofit, that's let's say my name in South Fresno, and you award me $100,000, I can use that and leverage it. I can go to even polluters and say, I want to do this greening project around Melegra or some community neighborhood in Southwestern or South Fresno, and be able to leverage the fact that I have this award to get matching funds to increase my ability to plan it. There should be, and that should be a specific item, you know, though you're not eligible as a private company or a foundation even a foundation as an offshoot as a private company, like Amazon has a charitable foundation. So that foundation cannot be eligible for this grant, okay? I mean, you have to be careful about eligibility in that respect, even saying nonprofits. But anyways, you should allow small community-based organizations to leverage these funds. Okay. To avoid, this is still page 4, the same item, eligibility. To avoid all arguments about who may apply and be eligible, simply state for-profit corporations are not eligible, nor their foundations, okay? Item 1 on page 4 under eligibility is so specific as to who's eligible to apply for the green project that there's actually no room to argue that an applicant not listed in item 1 may apply for this money. So that is a good thing. I just wanted to say that is something I like.
Haley,
Okay.
and I'm literally frantically taking all of these notes. I just want to note for everyone, it is 1 minute to 5, and we do plan to end this meeting at 5. So if we can, I'll maybe last like a couple more comments or maybe one more quick comment. And then if you can submit these in writing, that would be super helpful as we continue to make these edits. Yes.
I can end here and then, you know, I have those comments in writing. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Perfect. Yes, that would be helpful because I do want to be respectful of everyone's time and appreciate. So I don't know. I'll let you finish if you had one last thought. I didn't mean to interrupt, but.
You know, under page 5, project eligibility criteria, this is the last comment I'll make, is that I think it's desirable to have an applicant show us how the area that they plant is not going to be planted in monoculture, in a monoculture fashion, that they need to somehow demonstrate biodiversity with species selection, and to also to achieve the kind of actually advantages we want to achieve with pollution, lowering pollution and heat protection. And that's my last comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have more.
Yeah, we're going to send many more, but I do have another one that I think it's important just in general because about how that could prevent a lot of applications. I think that you throw in the word experience so many times that, and we all know how many organizations in the other than the cities that have their own departments that have, are experts in trees and all that. They're just one tree Fresno. That's it. So you just by throwing in the word experience scattered throughout the document, you're making every single other organization like out of the, not even being able to apply or think that I wouldn't take even the time because I'm not going to be considered seriously. So I think that there's probably other ways of saying, I understand probably what you're thinking. We want people with experience, but some other way would be like, that if they don't have the experience, the background planting trees, that they're going to consult, for example, with an expert party, so that you will still have the experience, but at the same time, you will be out the bed disqualifying all these organizations. And pretty much, because for that matter, just put Tree Fresno on the top and just give them the money, right? The Tree Fresno, the city, and that's it. And we call it a day. You save time, we save time, and we're not, having games. So I think that, that's another big thing that I thought it was just making things very unequitable.
And I thank you all for this, and thank you, Naimeen, for leaving us with that last thought.
Jessica, I have one thing to say.
Okay. This is now, Lisa is now going to be our last comment, and then I'll wrap up really quickly and address what
it's going to be really quick. Haley, you are phenomenal. Phenomenal comments. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And yes, I definitely want to thank Naimeen for bringing some experts. This is kind of her second round of bringing experts to the table, so I really appreciate it. I just want to thank you all for your comments. Definitely a lot to address here. Like I said, next steps will be for us to, obviously there's holidays coming up. We have actually a couple of different subcommittee meetings and a CSC. There's a lot in the next couple of weeks, and then holidays. So what we'll do is when we are ready with the RFP, we will then doodle kind of what we've done, doodle a next date. In between, I imagine with a lot of these comments, and specifically the comments it sounds like we'll receive in writing, we probably will have follow-up questions. So we'll probably get in contact. I know that Lisa mentioned herself, and I think you mentioned Dr. Curry that worked on outreach. So lots of different folks we know we need to work with in between. So we'll reach out to you, knowing that probably not over Christmas, but probably soon after. So I thank you all for your time. Have a great night, and thank you so much, everyone, for being on the call.
You know what? So sorry, Jess, I just want to note the question about the emails. Should we share with AB 617 or Dave's contact?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, absolutely. We can put, I know David said he had his email, but I honestly, ab617@valleyair.org is the best, because it guarantees it will hit David and Aaron, myself, Stephanie, Ryan, like it hits a bunch of us. And that's the fastest way. So yes, yep, the one Stephanie just threw in there. That would be the best place to submit comments. Everyone gets it at the same time. All right. Thank you so much.